My past lifetimes. There are any number of my lifetimes which are there in my memory, but I don't pay attention to any of that. I have a piece of life in Zambia, for example, but I pay attention only to that which has been spiritually significant in some way. The rest of it is of no consequence. There are many things around me today which are a legacy of my past, but I have carried only those things which are of spiritual significance. Who my mother was, who my father was, who my brothers were, who my sisters were, who my children were in all those past lives, I can perceive them very easily, but I will not. I have not even paid any attention to them. Only those who were with me in spirit, not in flesh or blood, I nurture them. Those who were with me in flesh and blood, I leave them to the earth, because it is to the earth that they belong. In that sense, I consider only my last 4 lifetimes significant. Vilva. In the early 1600s, there lived a young man in a small village, the present day of city of Raigad, in the central Indian state of Chhattisgarh. His name was Vilva. He was a tribesman who lived a wild and intense life. There is a certain tradition in India where some people call the Budu Buduku just walk through the street, usually very early in the morning when it is still dark. They wake you up with their drum beats. Intuitively, if they see something, they will tell you. They may say, for example, that death will occur in such and such house in 2 weeks' time, or someone will fall ill somewhere, and so on. Generally, people paid attention to these spontaneous utterances because they were known to come true. If nothing came to them that day, they would simply sing songs in praise of Shiva. After this, they would go and sit in a temple for some time, where people would go and make some offerings to them. This was a tradition within the Saiva culture, where this particular tribe of people is also involved in snake charming. Snakes and Shiva are deeply connected. Vilva belonged to a tribe like that. Vilva was deeply in love with what he was doing. These were people who lived totally loving life for what it is. They were not the kind to accumulate anything. They had no sense of money, property or possessions. They simply lived, and Shiva was the most important aspect of their lives. Bilva loved snakes. Mind you, snakes are generally poisonous creatures. If you are the kind who loves poisonous creatures, you have to be a different kind of person. To kiss a snake, you must be very courageous. He was a person for whom love meant everything. The rest was secondary. Being alive itself was secondary. That is the kind of person he was. He was someone who could not fit into the social structure and was looked upon as a rebel. For one of the many rebellious acts he did, not respecting the prevalent caste system distinction, he was put to death at a very young age by a cobra's bite while he was tied to a tree. At that time, you could not really call him a spiritual person. He was a devotee of Shiva, but during those last few moments of his life, he watched his breath. There was nothing else he could do, and breath watching just happened. The cobra's venom entered his body, and his breathing became very labored. Death was just a few minutes away. During this time, he watched his breath. It was more of a consequence than a conscious awareness. Beaten by a cobra and left to die, he was lying face down, almost dead. Yet, he managed to be aware of those last few minutes of life. This was more out of grace rather than any sadhana. From those few minutes of breath watching, a new spiritual process began which changed that person's future in so many ways. Shiva Yogi. In his next two lifetimes, he was a very intense seeker of the ultimate nature. Shiva was his way. Both the times he was known as Shiva Yogi. In the first life of sadhana, he died at the age of 37. He had no disease, just hunger, and the intensity of his sadhana did him in. He did not die enlightened, but he died in full dignity. He died not screaming, yelling or crying, but just trying to do sadhana, to be meditative and die. The second time over, he fared better. He lived up to 55 years of age. He went through a heartbreaking sadhana, but still final realization had not happened. At this point, he was bestowed the ultimate grace. Usually, I don't talk about my guru. He was called Sri Palaniswami and was a being beyond proportions. That was not his real name, but he was so called because he had attained to a certain samadhi state near the town of Palani in Tamil Nadu. He remained in this state for about 2.5 years. After that, he wandered all over the country, enlightening many people. He came to Shiva Yogi in the second lifetime and bestowed his grace upon him, a forlorn sadhaka. When this Shiva Yogi saw him, he recognized that this was the Guru. Until then, he would not accept any human being as his Guru. For him, Shiva was the only Guru. He wanted Shiva to come and initiate him. But when he saw Sri Palaniswami, he recognized that this being was at the very peak of consciousness and he offered himself. But somewhere, there was still a little resistance because he could not offer himself to another man. He would only offer himself totally to Shiva. So the Guru, out of compassion, took the form of Shiva himself. Shiva Yogi surrendered. Sri Palaniswami did not even touch him with his hand or foot. He just took his staff and tapped on Shiva Yogi's Agya Chakra or forehead. At that moment, Shiva Yogi attained to his ultimate nature. This contact with the Guru lasted only a few hours. After that, they never met again, but they were constantly in touch. Sri Palaniswami attained Mahasamadhi in the Vilayangiri mountains. Somehow, he identified Shiva Yogi as a person suitable for establishing the Dhyana Linga and entrusted this work to him. Not in speech, not in words, but wordlessly, he communicated the immense technology needed to consecrate the Dhyana Linga. So Shiva Yogi began working towards establishing the Dhyana Linga. He was not able to fulfill his Guru's vision in that lifetime because of limited resource and lack of support. So the rest of his time in that lifetime he spent mostly with his eyes closed. Sadguru Sri Brahma. To continue the work of creating the Dhyana Linga, Shiva Yogi came back as Sadguru Sri Brahma. He started the work towards this in Tamil Nadu. He travelled extensively in the state and established several small institutions, but his work on the Dhyana Linga was centered around Coimbatore. Here he faced a lot of social resistance from people. As the Dhyana Linga is the highest manifestation of the divine, it includes all aspects and manifestations of life. So, consecrating it involved men and women in very intense processes. If a man and woman sit together, people can only think of one thing. So, a lot of resistance came up and he was literally hounded out of the place. He became very angry that he could not fulfill his Guru's will and left Coimbatore in great fury as if on fire. Those were the worst times in Sadguru Sri Brahma's life. But in many ways, the best came out at that time. After lifetimes of sadhana and then fired by a phenomenal grace of the Guru, he was quite sure that what he set out to do would happen. But he burned with fury when it was robbed away from him by very ordinary and mediocre people whom he had underestimated. He realized that the power of ignorance is never to be underestimated. It is very powerful and the world is ruled by it most of the time. You think your knowledge, your fire, your enlightenment will do things, but the enlightened are always an individual. The ignorant are in masses. There is a huge power to that. He did not do the cold calculations necessary to work in the world, not because he was incapable of it. He did not do it simply because he thought his fire and his knowing would carry. But that is not how the world always works. The material aspect of the world, the human beings of different kinds, need to be handled as it is fit. Otherwise, it will not work. And this is a wonderful lesson for everyone, a lesson I have not forgotten even for a moment in my life. Even if you carry the divine light within you, there will still be darkness behind you. So unless you have created a lot of small lights behind you, you need to constantly turn back and check what is happening. Sadhguru Sri Brahma was alone. There were people here and there that he had lit up, but he did not like anyone following him. So he was alone. Because he was alone, behind him there was a darkness, and it followed him. It did not allow him to fulfill the purpose of his life. This is a good lesson for anyone, even such a magnificent human being as Sadhguru Sri Brahma, who could do things which are not considered human or humanly possible, could not fulfill what he came for. And it does not matter how many things you do, if you cannot fulfill the purpose that you have stood up for, that is considered failure. Sadhguru Sri Brahma failed and he did not like it. He did not like it one bit. So knowing the only emotion that he knew, he got angry. He was always angry, not about anything or anyone, but anger was his vehicle for intense existence. In that anger, he started to walk in no particular direction. Seeing his fierceness, no one was able to go near him except for one disciple by the name of Vibhuti who followed him. Sadhguru Sri Brahma walked without stopping to eat, sleep, or even sit for 3 or 4 days. During this time, the disciple would follow him, try to gauge in which direction the master was going, cook food and run to reach his master and place the food in front of him, step aside and wait in the hope that he would eat. Where would he walk? He eventually began walking in the direction where the saint of grace for him was. So he walked towards the town of Kadapa in the state of Andhra Pradesh. Initially, when he set out, he did not even think where he was going. He was just walking blindly to cool his head a bit. But invariably, he went in that direction because there is this temple in Kadapa where Sri Palani Swami himself had spent a lot of time. Probably it was reconsecrated by him. So Sadhguru Sri Brahma went in that direction. When he finally reached the temple in Kadapa, his anger had still not subsided. Even after 4 or 5 months, he was still angry. No one could go near Sadhguru Sri Brahma and his disciple. It is not that they did anything or harmed anyone, but they were so fierce, fiercer than wild animals. Even if they were only sitting, no one wanted to go near them. Within a few days, all the priests in the temple left, as they could not stay there because of the intensity of that being. Sadhguru Sri Brahma knew that he did not have much time. He knew that because of certain karmic limitations, he would have to leave his body within the next 2 years. When his head got a little cooler, and when he was able to put down the shame and resentment of failure a little bit, he settled down to make some very cold calculations. From being a fiery, exuberant, don't care a devil kind of a yogi, he came down to being a cold calculation, a highly pragmatic, controlled fire. he sat with his disciple and plotted how to make the Dhyanalinga happen in the next life. Many things were decided there. Who should be involved in the consecration process, where they should be born, in which womb, how and what time. He plotted every aspect that would be needed and determined solutions for many issues that could impede. Sadguru Sri Brahma even decided what kind of a person he should be born as, how his physical body and state of mind should be. Everything was created right there. The fundamental blueprint for the Dhyanalinga was made in that Kadapa temple. Sadguru Sri Brahma then came back to Coimbatore for the last time. He was heading up the Vilayangiri mountains, which also contained his Guru's Samadhi. There were many people gathered at the foothills that day. To them he declared, "This one will be back." He ascended the mountain for the last time. Now Sadguru Sri Brahma was supercharged with failure, and having been unable to fulfill his Guru's will, he executed an extremely rare feat of exiting through the 7 chakras all at once. He was one of the very few masters who had mastery over all the 7 chakras and was referred to as Chakreswara. He was only 42 years old at the time. He did this phenomenally rare thing as a preparation for the consecration of the Dhyanalinga. Though he knew his failure was that of mismanagement of social situations, he was ascertaining for himself that it was not a lapse of his own ability. Exiting the body through all the 7 chakras meant this person had complete mastery over all the 114 chakras. It is because of that mastery that now we can have people blowing up everywhere with intense experiences like explosions. He chose the peaks of Vilayangiri mountains for this incredible feat, as his Guru's Samadhi was in these mountains. It was the lap of his master. Thus he assured himself that the next time around there would be no failure or mishit. Even today, the place where he attained Samadhi and said his body exists. It is very vibrant. It pulsates with energy. People who go there can feel it and experience it. The quality of this place at the top of the 7th hill, just at the edge of the mountain where chilly, wild winds blow constantly, says everything about this man. That is where he felt most comfortable. It is a very powerful spot. If you are a meditator, if you are a little sensitive, when you go there, you will go crazy. It is like that because he left with certain purpose. He has a certain purpose to fulfill, so he left in a particular way. It is not just about liberation and dissolution. He used his energies and even his death for the future establishment or manifestation of how he wanted to be. Before Sadguru Sri Brahma shed the body, he made one more futile attempt to achieve the work he had started. A certain yogi in central India had left his body at the age of 26. He was a Bala yogi who had attained self-realization at the age of 11. This yogi spent about 3.5 years in Samadhi. When he came out, he was eager to share his experience, but he only found 5 or 6 disciples to impart it to. Even they were not sincere enough, so he got angry and he left his body. Sadguru Sri Brahma immediately took hold of this Bala yogi's body and tried to fulfill his purpose through it. He did this because he had no patience to be born again and go through the process of life all over again. For a few months, Sadguru Sri Brahma was in 2 different physical bodies at the same time. In this attempt to create the Dhyanalinga, he gathered a few disciples around him and tried working with them with tremendous intensity because the time span available was very limited. When people did not meet his expectations, he chose to shelve the effort and depart with a declaration, "This one will be back."